Imagine going to work every day, painting with poison. Imagine being told it's completely safe. And then imagine watching your teeth fall out, your jaw rot from the inside, your spine collapse like wet paper. And then imagine the company that did this to you looking you in the eye and saying, "You are making it all up." This is not a horror movie. This is American history. And these 6 women, with broken bodies and borrowed time, they changed the world. The year is 1917. The United States has just entered World War I. Factories from New Jersey to Illinois are running day and night. And in a low brick building in Orange, New Jersey, young women, some barely 15 years old, are showing up to a job they consider a gift. The United States Radium Corporation is hiring.
The pay is 3 times what most women could earn anywhere else. The work is called skilled. The hours are regular. And the material they work with? It glows. Radium had been discovered just 19 years earlier by Marie Curie. To the American public, it was nothing short of miraculous. Radium was sold in toothpaste, in face cream, in health tonics you could buy at any pharmacy. Doctors prescribed it for arthritis. The wealthy bathed in radium-laced water at expensive spas. One company even sold a device to irradiate your drinking water at home. Radium, the world believed, was the element of life. So when these young women were handed fine-tipped brushes and told to paint luminous numbers onto watch faces, they were not afraid. They were proud. The process seemed simple enough. Pick up the brush, paint the tiny numbers on the watch dial, set it down, repeat. But the brushes, they kept losing their tip. The fine point that made precision possible would spread and blur after just a few strokes. So the supervisors taught the women a technique. The company called it lip pointing. You put the tip of the brush between your lips. You shaped it to a perfect point with your tongue. Then you dipped it into the radium paint. Then you painted. Lip, dip, paint. All day, every day. The women completed this motion dozens of times each hour, hundreds of times every single day. And after their shifts, they would walk home and catch their reflection and laugh because they glowed. Their faces shimmered, their hair sparkled, their clothes, their hands, their teeth, all faintly luminescent in the dark. They thought it was wonderful.
They had no idea what was already happening inside them. Her name was Molly Maggia. She was 22 years old, bright, hardworking, well-liked on the factory floor. In 1921, she started having toothaches. She went to the dentist. He pulled the tooth. The wound would not heal. More teeth began to ache. More were pulled. And every socket, every hollow space left behind, refused to close. The gum tissue turned black. Then the jawbone began to soften.
Her dentist would later testify that he had never seen anything like it in 30 years of practice. When he pressed his finger gently against Molly's jaw, the bone crumbled beneath his touch. Not metaphorically, literally. The bone dissolved. Molly Maggia died in September 1922. She was 24 years old. The cause of death, written on her certificate? Syphilis. The company's hired doctors had chosen that word deliberately. A disease that would shame her name, humiliate her family, and silence anyone who asked too many questions. But Molly was not alone. Margaret Looney, Irene Rudolph, Hazel Vincent, Catherine Schaub. One by one, the women who had painted those glowing dials began to fall. Teeth, jaws, spines,
hips. Bone by bone by bone. And every doctor connected to the United States Radium Corporation gave them the same answer. It's anemia. It's stress. It's your lifestyle. Here is the fact that transforms this story from tragedy into something that should make every one of us furious. As early as 1924, while these women were still painting dials and drinking radium tonics and laughing about how they glowed,
the United States Radium Corporation had already commissioned internal studies that confirmed everything. Radium, when swallowed or inhaled, behaves exactly like calcium in the human body. It travels directly to the bones. And there, silently, invisibly, it irradiates from the inside out, destroying marrow, disintegrating structure,
turning living bone into something fragile as chalk. The company knew. They hired physicians to write false reports. They pressured independent scientists to stay quiet. When a public health advocate named Dr. Catherine Wiley tried to investigate, the company blocked her access to the workers entirely. When a researcher from Harvard, a man named Cecil Drinker, submitted a report that confirmed the danger, the company intercepted his findings. Before publishing them, they removed the damning conclusions. They rewrote the data. For years, women were dying in pain, and the men responsible were sitting in clean offices, altering documents, and calling it a day. You can only bury the truth for so long. Her name was Grace Fryer. She was 26 years old when she decided she had had enough.
Her back had partially collapsed. Her feet had deteriorated so severely she needed metal braces just to stand upright. Her jaw had been surgically rebuilt. She was in constant, grinding pain. But Grace Fryer was not broken. In 1927, 5 years after Molly Maggia died, Grace decided to sue the United States Radium Corporation. It took her 2 years to find a lawyer willing to take the case. One attorney after another turned her away. The company was powerful. The legal battle would be expensive. And the women, they were already dying. Who would want to fight a case they might not live to win? Then a young New Jersey attorney named Raymond Berry said yes. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy. He had no particular reputation to risk. But he looked at what had been done to these women, and something in him decided, this cannot stand. 4 other women joined Grace. The newspapers gave them a name: the Radium Girls. Catherine Schaub, Quinta McDonald, Albina Larice, Edna Hussman, Grace Fryer. 5 women who arrived to court in wheelchairs. Some had to be carried in.
Their bones were so brittle that a firm handshake could fracture them. They showed up anyway. They testified anyway. The trial of the Radium Girls became a national sensation. Journalists packed every bench. Editors across the country ran the story on their front pages. And what the American public saw, what they could not look away from, was devastating. Young women, 20s, 30s, coming to court in wheelchairs, faces hollowed by pain, bodies destroyed by a poison their employer had knowingly sold them as safe. The company's legal team was aggressive. They argued the statute of limitations had expired. They argued the women had filed too late. They argued, essentially, that the law protected the corporation more than it protected the dying. But something else was happening outside that courtroom. The public turned. Letters flooded newspapers. Everyday Americans, factory workers, housewives, office clerks, wrote in fury. The Radium Girls stopped being a local legal dispute.
They became a moral question the entire country had to answer. Were corporations allowed to poison workers and simply wait for them to die? The answer, it seemed, was going to be no. In June of 1928, the United States Radium Corporation finally did something it had refused to do for years. It faced the truth. A settlement was reached. Each of the 5 women received $10,000, roughly $180,000 in today's money, plus a yearly pension and full medical coverage for the rest of their lives. It was not justice. Nothing would ever be full justice. But it was something no American worker had ever won before. For the first time in United States history, an employer had been held legally responsible for the long-term health destruction of its employees. The Radium Girls, exhausted, in agony, had won. Here is where the story becomes something even larger than itself. The Radium Girls didn't just win a settlement. They rebuilt the floor of American labor law. Their case directly inspired the first occupational disease protection laws in the United States. It forced the government to establish the first maximum permissible limits for radioactive materials in the human body. It laid the legal foundation that would protect nuclear workers during the Manhattan Project, the effort to build the atomic bomb in World War II. Scientists who studied the women's medical data, with the women's own consent, produced the first hard scientific evidence of what radiation does to human tissue over time. That evidence was used at the Nuremberg doctors' trials after the war. It helped establish the global standards for human medical ethics that still govern research today. And Molly Maggia, the young woman whose death certificate said syphilis, was exhumed in 1927 for scientific study.
When researchers held a Geiger counter to her remains, it clicked furiously. She had been dead for 5 years, and she still glowed. Grace Fryer died in 1933. She was 35 years old. Catherine Schaub died the same year. Quinta MacDonald in 1929. Edna Hussman in 1939. Albina Larice outlived them all. She passed in 1946. And Molly Maggia, the first, was gone in 1922. She never even knew a fight had been waged in her name.
None of them saw the full shape of what they had started. None of them lived to watch the laws change, the courtrooms shift, the world slowly, imperfectly, become safer. But you are living inside that impact right now. Every safety regulation that shields a factory worker, every law that holds a corporation responsible for what it does to the people it employs, every standard that says you cannot poison people and call it progress, all of it has roots in what 6 young women did with the little time they had left. They were told they were powerless. They were told the law would not help them. They were told to go home and die quietly. They refused. 6 women against one of the most powerful corporations in America, with broken bodies, with borrowed time. And they won. The next time someone tells you that ordinary people can't change the world, you remember their names. Grace, Catherine, Quinta, Edna,
Albina, Molly, the girls who glowed. If this story moved you, share it. The best way to honor the Radium Girls is to make sure the world never forgets them. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who did extraordinary things, and leave their names in the comments below. Say them out loud, because after everything they gave, they deserve to be remembered. The Radium Girls, Grace, Catherine, Quinta, Edna, Albina, and Molly, are the reason American workers have legal protection from occupational disease today. Subscribe, share, remember.